Right then, hello, welcome to the latest video. Been messing around for the longest time now trying to find somewhere to film this. The kids have just broke up for half term and they're overly hyped. So I'm in my son's bedroom. You might be able to see Spiderman over there, yeah, it's pretty sweet. So it's a bit of a different location. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is something new actually. It's not Poisson pack related, it's not the draw system related. It does link into the sort of the predictions, obviously. So what I've been doing lately is working on looking at new ways to predict outcomes of football matches. So obviously we've done Poisson, we've done the system that I use for the NBM draw system. It doesn't mean I'm not going to use these. I've just been exploring other models basically just for something to do. And what I've settled on trying, which is what I've been wanting to do for a while, is a rating system. It's nothing new. It's not a sort of rocket science. It's rating teams based on their strength, but not too deeply. So basically, what I've been doing is going back. I think we've gone back 4 years. Just started off in the Premier League to show you this example. And what you do is you give all of the teams a sort of bracket, a ranking compared to each other, and then you can work out the odds based on the results of such pairings over the years. That sounds long-winded, doesn't it? So you'll see a lot more when I've got a worked example in a minute. So if you group teams into four groups in the Premier League, Group A, Group B, Group C and Group D, Group A being the strongest, B being the second, C and then D being relegation candidates if you like, you then group each team, give each team a ranking, and you do this each season. So I went back to 2018-19, so you can't just say Man City are green, they're Group A, because back in 2018-19 they might have been Group B. It's not a good example using Man City because they'd always be A. But teams like Brighton, for example, teams like Wolves have changed within the groupings. Aston Villa have changed within the groupings. So you have to go into each season and give them a consistent ranking system. So it's got to be a consistent amount of groups. So I've been using A, B, C, and D throughout the whole four, but the teams within will change. And then what you do is you go back and look at every single fixture in the league that year, and you say, okay, when a Group A team played a Group C team, what was the result? A Group B team played a Group D team, what was the result? Vice versa. You'll get 16 sets of results. So you'll get Group A versus Group B versus Group A, Group C. So there's 16 results that you could come up with. And then you aggregate those over the 4 seasons or however many. The more seasons, the better with this. It definitely is the case that the more data you use, the more, well, we say accurate, the more, I think the more useful the data would be. So I've gone back to 18, so I've done 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21 and now 21, 22, just for the Premier League so far. So basically you get an aggregate of how many times each team or each group has beaten the other group in the same sort of circumstance. So you'll get an aggregate number of how many times somebody who's a Group D team, which you could say relegation fodder, have beaten a Group C team at home over the years, and then you can use that to determine odds. So it's easy enough to do. It's similar to how we do with the Poisson. You get a percentage. So we'll be looking at how many times have Group B played Group C at home, and then we'll be saying how many times have they won, drawn and lost those games, what was the percentage of those outcomes, and then we can convert those into decimal odds and see how that looks against Betfair odds. So yes, that's what I've been doing, and it's been good fun, and it's pretty interesting. You know, I think what I like about it is it uses your intuition a little bit. So it's a departure from what I've been doing in the past and saying purely stats driven. The Poisson distribution model is a mathematical model, and it's based on data. And to be fair, the same with the NBM draw system. I don't intervene in that. I don't say, okay, I know the stats say that, but I know that this team is actually a little bit stronger than this team this year. I don't do any of that. I let the data do the talking. Whereas this one, you do get a chance to put a bit of your own, like I say, your own intuition, your own sort of knowledge. To an extent, you don't do it per match. You don't say, well, no, this match, I don't agree with that. But you do get to choose the rankings, don't you? So some of them are quite difficult. Like this year, you'll see in the video, some of them are quite difficult. You've got to know where to draw the line for the next bracket. I found it difficult, and because you have certain, I wouldn't say allegiances because I'm a Birmingham City fan, so I'm not in the Premier League, but certain teams that you might think, oh, I don't think they're all they're cracked up to be, or other teams you think, oh, they're better than people give them credit for. but the table doesn't say that, and you've got to decide where to put the rankings. You've got to use a bit of your intuition, but not too much. And I think there's definitely room for a model that blends the two. And that takes me on to what my next video will be, blending the Poisson distribution model with the ranking system, the rating system. And I'm going to be looking at doing a bit of a hybrid, so that I'll be using, at the moment I'm thinking 75% Poisson and 25% ratings in terms of the odds, and meshing them together and seeing what they come out at, to try and see if it gives us a little bit more of an edge, to put some sort of human the action, interaction, whatever, some of the human thought into the mathematical modelling, and see what that looks like. So that's going to be my next video. But for now, I'll leave you with the live demo, the worked demo of what I've been up to, and I think you'll find it interesting, hopefully. If not, just turn it off and unsubscribe. No, I'm joking. Cool, see you in a bit. So let's get going with the demonstration of what I've been rambling about. So what did we need to do first? First, we need to give rankings to each of the teams in the league for each of the seasons that we are using. So as you can see, I've done 18, 19, 19, 20, 2021, 21, 22. And you'll see here that I've got so this will be common for each year. We've got the 16 different possible results. We've got A plays A plays B, A plays C, A plays D, B plays A, B plays B. Yeah, you get the idea. So every game where A's at home, every game where B's at home, C and D, and we can then see that we've put space to record how many times they won and the percentages. So how many times A played A in this season, how many times that came out with a home win, a draw and an away, and what the percentages are. So that's that's pretty self-explanatory, I think. So here you can see I've been ranking the teams and I've given them colour codes. So for me, I've put the top tiers in green, the second tier in this sort of yellowy colour, then the third tier in orange, and the final tier in red. And to do that, you just simply pop over to, well, I'll show you 2021 because it might be a bit more, obviously it's a bit more current and it might be easier to demonstrate. So you just go over to, I just went over to Soccerway or whatever website you want to look at the table. You don't have to do any filtering or anything. And it's just a case of you deciding where you think the lines go. I find it easy to do it with 4 groups, but there are limitations to that, and you can have as many groups as you want. It doesn't have to be the 16 outcomes. You can do whatever you want, but I've been doing it with 4 for the sake of this. So I think I went the bottom 3 and called those groups Group D, and I've labelled them red. I mean, in the past I might have gone up to sort of Newcastle and Everton possibly, but again, this is where the intuition or what perceived intuition comes in. I don't think Newcastle and Everton are the same strength of Norwich, Watford and Burnley. No disrespect to any of those teams. I feel like, especially with the January dealings and the new managers, I just feel that I want those in the next tier up to be sort of on a par with teams like Leeds, Brentford, Palace, Villa. Leicester are one that have sort of dropped down into that second from the bottom tier. I can't quite put them at the moment up with Arsenal, Wolves, West Ham, Man United are another interesting one, but yeah, obviously they're going to be in that tier. Whereas normally I'd be wanting to put Leicester up there, but you can't quite get them up there. But I think I've got Brighton up there, for example. I think I drew the line here, so you can see there's a sort of points difference, 29 to 33. You do get natural breaks sometimes where you think, well, that's got to be a new group. And again, I think it's a third season out of the 4 that I've got only Man City and Liverpool in the top tier. So it's a very sort of crude way of doing it, but that's up to you to how you decide. You can be a bit more strategic, systematic with it. It's up to you. So that's how I've done it. And then I've took this data from footballdata.co.uk, I think it is, where you can download all the past results. So if we go back to 2018-19, downloaded all the past results. It comes in a much bigger spreadsheet than this, with loads of different bits and bobs. It tells you who the referee was, shots on target and all that stuff. But I just stripped that out and just used the the home team, away team, full-time goals at home, full-time goals away, and the full-time result. So it's the result really that we're using. We're not too interested in the goals, but I kept that in case I wanted it in future. So it's just a case of then filtering by colour. So I've been filtering by green versus green, for example, for the first result, A versus A, we've called it. And you can see in that season there were only 2 games because there's only 2 teams, and they both ended. No, sorry, one was a draw and one was a home win, and you can see that here. So home win, draw. So it's not a massive data set, is it, for the Greens? But that's because the rest of the Premier League can't keep up. So what if we did orange versus yellow? We're going to get a lot more. So you can see there we've got a lot more. It's just shifted it down because of the way I've filtered, and it's removing fields. So you can see we've got a whole lot more results here. So then it's a case of going and taking out filtering it like this. So when you've got orange versus yellow, we're looking at how many home wins. 12 home wins. Orange versus yellow, 12 home wins, 37.5% of the overall games in that category. So it's just a case of going through and doing that, and doing it for each league, each season that you're putting in your data set. Like I say, the more the better. It does take a little while, so that might limit how many you do. So I've done 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21, and the current season 21, 22. Just to show you a little bit about what I was talking about in the intro about the teams in the different positions. So Southampton I've got there as red. Let's go back and have a look at the table for 2018-19, shall we, just to see what it looked like. Some of you might remember, I certainly wouldn't. So 2018-19, yeah, you see Southampton was 16th with 39 points at the end of the season, and they weren't a million miles off relegation, were they? So only 5 points. So that's why they were in the bottom tier for me in that season. Whereas obviously in 2021-22, they're up in the 3rd tier and probably the sort of one of the better teams in that area. So that's what we're working with there. You do see teams jumping across bands, but it's important that you do keep the same amount of bands for the 4 seasons here. Otherwise, you won't be able to compare your scores accurately. So we've done that. We've done that for each season. And then we've gone for what you then need to do is the combined results, which is what we've got here. So this has aggregated all of the scores up for each section, adding up all of the scores from the 4 seasons and putting them all together, giving us an overall percentage, and then giving us what we're interested in reading. So on the fixtures, we can see now that I've put in the odds from the rating system here, and I've been onto Betfair just now and put the actual odds, the real odds at the time of recording, which is what you can see, 18th Feb, 5 o'clock. So you can then use these to see what sort of value you're getting based on your own rating odds, like we did with the Prosom data. You can do it with your rating odds. So if you have a look here, we've got West Ham versus Newcastle, 1.69. So we're getting a bit of value according to the real odds, because we're thinking that West Ham have got a better chance of winning than that. 4.39, 4.10, 5.58, 5.4. You can see that they're very similar, so that's sort of encouraging. They're not a million miles away, are they? So we've got sort of a West Ham win is what I would be betting on there if I were betting on that game. Arsenal Brentford, it's going to be the same odds because it's the same category. You see, we've got the Group B versus Group C. So if we look at that in the combined results, Group B versus Group C, 1.69, 4.39, 5.58, and that's what we've got here and here. And I think there's here, and I think there's another one. I think there's Wolves at the end. I've got the same odds, so you will have the same odds for the same, different teams, which obviously is you're not going to get bang on odds because that's unlikely to happen. You're not going to replicate those, but it's a ballpark sort of thing, isn't it? So Arsenal, we've got the same odds as the game above, but we're only getting 1.50 in real odds, and 1.50 for Brentford. That's not right, is it? I don't think that's right. Let's have a little look at that, shall we? I've obviously mistyped that. We'll fix it right now. I'm not going to stop the video because I Can't be bothered. Brentford should be 8.6. I thought that was a bit thin. 8.6. Sorry about that. So you're getting value according to that, because we only got 5.58, but still, So we'd go for an Arsenal win there. Villa versus Watford, a little bit of value in Villa or the draw, but I don't think you're going to get much of a price laying Watford. But we certainly don't see a Watford win here. I'd be going for Villa. Burnley. Brighton, good odds on Brighton actually, so that's probably a good value bet. I think that's the best one so far. 1.37 we're predicting, 1.71 is what you're getting. Crystal Palace Chelsea is an interesting one. Palace are sort of definitely outsiders according to the bookies, which you would understand. But according to historical data, teams in these positions, then you should be looking at about 3.68 for a Palace win and 3.68 for a draw as well. So laying Chelsea would be the angle here, or a Palace win. A caveat to that is one of the drawbacks with the rating system, or one of the things you need to be aware of, is that not all teams within your brackets are going to be the same strength. So by that, Chelsea are obviously, for me, I've put them in tier 2, if you like, Group B, but you could argue that they're top 4 or the traditional top 6, and should they be green? But they're so far away from Liverpool and Man City at the moment. That's my reasoning. But there could be quite a difference, really, can't there, between Chelsea and, as you can see, Tottenham. You could argue there's a big difference. So when you're looking at these teams, it might be a little bit biased towards the Group C team in this instance, because you could say, well, Chelsea, should be shorter odds than that. But that's the way the system is, and you take it with not with a pinch of salt, but you do need to use your sort of knowledge and your own sort of intuition as well. So that's the bet that I'd be using there, though. Liverpool Norwich, it's kind of irrelevant. Not irrelevant as a fixture, but there's no point going through it. We know what it's going to predict. Southampton Everton, so that's an interesting one, isn't it? 2 Group C teams, and traditionally very tight, as you can see. We've got the same odds for a home and away win. The value there would be Everton, and I'd agree with that. In terms of the odds, I'm not saying Everton are going to win, but I think there's quite a lot of value on Everton there, and I'd be happy to take that on, I think. Man City Tottenham, Man City. There's value in Tottenham according to the odds, but you always get that because they can't price. They're never going to price them exactly the same. It doesn't really matter if there's value or not. I don't think you'd take it on. So I've got Man City. Leeds Man United, I've gone for a draw based on these stats. You could lay Man United. I don't know what your odds would be for laying Man United. It wouldn't be brilliant. I don't know. They are favourites, but I think just based on performances and based on the stats, I'd go for Leeds. Like I say, this is where it compares to the Poisson. You can use your sort of your own opinions and knowledge of the game, or perceived knowledge. I'm not saying I've got knowledge, but and Wolves Leicester. So that's similar to the first two fixtures, Group B versus Group C. This is another one that's kind of difficult because Leicester, as I said before, I want them in the upper tier, but in the second tier, Group B, the same as Wolves. But at the moment, they're just not there, are they? And that's where you get led by the data, because maybe I'd be overly biased on my past sort of knowledge of Leicester and how I feel they play. But we have got real value in Wolves according to this, so that's what I'd be taking on. Yes, I hope you enjoyed that. As I mentioned in the intro, I'm going to be meshing this together with the Poisson distribution model and doing a bit of a hybrid to see if we can get the best of both worlds in terms of the softer side of it, looking at how teams have reacted to certain fixtures in the past like this, and giving them rankings and using a bit of our own work to rank them, and then meshing that together with the pure data and see if we can come up with something. So I'll try and get that out over the weekend. Thanks a lot. See ya.